Hello, I'm Dr. Basil Considine. I'm here from the ACU Online Writing Center, and today we're going to be talking about how to format your very first assignment in the MBA program. Now, while we're going to be looking at the particulars of this assignment, most of the things we're going to be talking about are applicable to every assignment thereafter in the whole MBA program. Because if there's one thing that's consistent, it's using APA formatting and wanting to communicate clearly. So, if you are new to the Writing Center and new to ACU period, welcome. We are happy to have you here. The ACU Online Writing Center provides a variety of services to students. Starting with, we have webinars such as this. We have a wide variety of resources on our website. We work with students at any stage in the writing, and you can come to a webinar, watch a video, download one of our resources or guides, and make appointments to get feedback on papers or ideas for papers. Because you might come in and you've just started reading assignment instructions and you're wondering, well, okay, does this make sense? Does my proposal seem to fit the parameters of the assignment? Or does my outline work? Or, oh, I've written a thesis. Does this make sense first? And is it doing what the assignment asked me to second? And you can go all the way up to and including a full draft or a copy of the paper you've turned in, gotten feedback on, and you're trying to make it better for the resubmission. All of these are fine. We have two types of appointments that you can sign up for. First are asynchronous appointments, and these are really a great thing if you have a schedule and you're not sure exactly when you're going to be finishing or you're going to be running up to last minute. Because for an asynchronous appointment, all you have to do is sign up for a time, and then by the time that slot rolls around, you upload your draft and any special requests for feedback, and we send you feedback within 24 hours of your appointment time. So if you have an 11:30 appointment time that you sign up for, so long as you get your draft in by 11:30, not a problem. You can go to bed and then we'll send you feedback the next day. Or if some students will sign up for a morning time, they'll work on it, then they'll go off and they'll go to work or they'll go to class, as knowing that they'll be getting feedback coming to work on the next time they're available. You can also sign up for real-time appointments, which would use phone or Zoom. So these are great if you have questions you want to ask in kind of a back-and-forth dialogue thing, or you expect that you'll have follow-up questions that you want to ask quickly. Zoom appointments are especially helpful because you can see things. And so if there are functions you're not familiar with Word, or you're not sure how to use parts of the template, or other formatting things, and a lot of people are visual learners and work better when they can see things and they concentrate on the text a little bit better when it's happening in real time. So if that describes you, sign up for a real time or phone or Zoom appointment. All right, and with that, just like the asynchronous, you don't need to have your draft ready a day before or 2 hours before. So long as you have it and send it at the start of the appointment, that's fine. You want to send it by the start of the appointment so you don't spend any time just getting to your email and going back and forth. But, again, it doesn't need to be very long in advance. All right. Now, we have a lot of resources on the Online Writing Center website, and I'll be referring to some of these in the rest of this video. That appointment scheduling process, just to recap, you go to the WC Online system. You actually access this through my.acu.edu. And from one of the drop-downs, you select Online Writing Center. And so you go there, you sign up for a time, save that appointment, then you use the appointment form to access the link to upload your paper draft, and we send you feedback within 24 hours of your time. Sometimes faster. And if you go to our webinars page, there's a lot of things. At the top, there's a schedule of all the webinars scheduled for this term. At the bottom, there's an alphabetical list of all the webinars we've offered and recorded for easy searching. And in the middle, there's a program-specific webinar guide, which I point out because if you went to BUSA, you would find all of the classes with webinar tie-ins from the MBA program. So if you're looking for things that are helpful to you, and you're taking, say, Business 530, well, you can go ahead and see what we have that's already prepared that you can watch whenever you want. Now I've gone ahead and I have loaded the Writing Center's webinar pages. If you are going to the home page, just go to Services, Writing Webinars. And we can see here's the schedule of all the webinars that are coming up. So if you want to mark your schedule for, oh, I know this one is going to be released or be offered in real time, you can mark your calendar for that. And so you might see, oh, there is a webinar that I want, MBA coffee break. Now we'd say in the listing there what course it ties in there. And that doesn't mean that you have to wait till you're taking that course. A lot of students will like to watch these videos as a sort of continuous professional development to keep things that are important to them on their mind and build up that knowledge base, that understanding of how things are recommended to be done. And they'll watch those particularly during week 0 when they're in between classes. Now, if we scroll down here to the guide, you'll see that we have an expanding array of webinars, and there are a lot. But to help you find exactly what you need, if you go to a particular program code, like BUSA, you'll see, oh, we have another tie-in with the Week 1 Leadership Theories assignment, and we have a tie-in with the Week 7 assignment. And then as we add new webinars aligning with different courses, we add the videos here. So once a video is offered, whether it's as a live webinar or a pre-recorded release, it's like this one that we're doing right now, this will be added to that guide as soon as it's out and available. So that will always be your most current reference for what you can watch. All right, let us go back to talking about related webinar recordings. Because as it happens, because we're doing a tie-in with the very first week's assignments in this course, we are looking at a different aspect of BUSA 530's Week 1 and Leadership Theories assignment. Because this webinar recording here is more about how to write the content required. In this webinar that we're doing right now, we're talking specifically about APA style, the formatting, the presentation, the look. Now, if you're in this class, I strongly recommend that you bookmark this webinar that we have for the Week 7 assignment. This is something that we added by student request because a lot of students looked at this and said, oh, this is rather substantial. I would like some help in understanding how to plan out something of this size. And so we have that webinar. All right, some things that you'll see me referring to later. APA course paper template. That will do a lot of the formatting for you. We have a YouTube channel where you can watch many of our videos through any mobile device that you have. So if you're on the go or stuck in line at the Registry of Motor Vehicles or something like that, you could watch a video if you wanted. We post things to our main site first, and then we release those to the YouTube channel later. So the latest, greatest is always on our website, but the YouTube channel we try and keep in sync, and there's a huge body of content there. We also have a blog where we explore different topics related to writing and grammar. So we have 4 major learning objectives for today. The first is to understand the assignment that we are going to be discussing and using as the catalyst for familiarizing ourselves with APA formatting, which we're going to divide into 2 steps because the content is more manageable, more easy to digest if we break it into different groups. So we'll discuss some guiding rules, and we'll talk about some particulars for how those work out in practice. We're going to finish with talking about how to cite and reference necessary sources for Week 1 assignments. All right, let's dive into that first one. So this is the second assignment for BUSA 530, the leadership course. And this assignment begins with a preamble where they say, okay, your readings include numerous models and frameworks that people use to try to explain leadership. Virtually all these models fall into one of 3 broad categories of leadership theory. And then they ask you to review. Now, a question often comes up. Should I cite this web page? Or how do I cite this web page in the Canvas site for my paper? And the answer is, well, you could do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. because this particular web page is here to give you a quick, easy-to-access reference for reviewing these theories before you start writing. But it is a summary of material that is covered in much greater detail and depth in the assigned reading for the week. So this is here as a convenience, but I would not recommend citing this. Because one of the precepts of writing in APA style is that you cite appropriate sources. Now, if you are, say, interviewing economists on whether you should buy real estate in a particular market at this time, and you just cite your friend Jerry from across the street, we would need some convincing to think that Jerry is an authoritative witness, and that they have informed and valuable opinion on this matter. And in a similar way, when you are writing your papers, most of the time you're going to be citing published sources, partly because they are accessible by others, partly because they are, if you've selected your sources well, authoritative and grounded in empirical knowledge. So, our three theory families that we're looking at here: trait theories, that there are traits that you are born with, innate traits, and that they're things that you develop along the way. And that if you have these traits, you will be more successful as a leader. Of course, there are biases that can come up with this, especially if there are legal constructs that make it harder for one group to participate in another. But in general, trait theories say that, okay, the person acquires, through birth or other development, certain traits that are necessary to be a leader. Now, the second family, behavioral theories, is that people do things and make other people want to follow them as leaders, and that these can include actions that you take, skills that you've developed, and in particular, things that inspire other people. Contingency or fit theories are the third family here, and that is that there's a sort of resonance when you find yourself in something that you are really, really well suited for. Now, you can find your own personal examples of each of these, but I will say that often people use a mix of both, because they say, okay, well, this explains this thing very well, and this explains this other thing very well. Not saying it's always the right one for the situation, but one of the things you'll be doing in your assignments, and especially your final paper, is talking about how different theories explain or don't explain success, and what they suggest should be done to solve problems. So now we are moving on to the main part of the instructions, a list of things that you're supposed to write, starting with defining leadership using no more than 40 words. And this is something where do watch our other webinar, because it delves into some of how to do this and how to do it well. Briefly, you're going to want to start by writing down a list of ideas and seeing what the overlaps are between them, what the commonalities, how you can, shall we say, condense those by finding the big picture described by those different terms and ideas that you write down. After that, you're going to be arguing for one of the three leadership perspectives that we just discussed here. Now again, when you refer to that, you should be citing the course reading for the week, not this page specifically. This page here is just as a quick reference guide. Now, I want you to pay particular attention to this note, because it's something that I sometimes see in paper drafts where people have written the assignment and they didn't decide going into it which theory they were going to be arguing for, and so they just write down pros and cons for all three, and then they say, well, they all have pros and cons, how could I decide? And that's the assignment is specifically asking you to find the one that you will argue is most applicable, acknowledging that none of them is going to be wholly perfect and cover every situation. But based on your personal experience and your professional understanding to date, tell us why you chose the one that you did and why you're making this argument. And there's a reference to an exercise in the course textbook that may be helpful. Then you need to provide a well-known leader who is not one of the examples being used in this course a lot. So, not Jesus, not Steve Jobs, and explain how their actions, their successes, are explained by your chosen theory, and use at least 2 specific events or actions in that. I will just say that a lot of people have an easier time if they choose more than 2. Not too much more, but like 3 or 4 usually helps you be able to write a paper of approximately 2 pages in length, which is what the assignment asks you to do. And so the next one, explain what the theory tells you today about your own leadership going forward. And that may be something where you look at this and say, well, okay, according to the behavioral theory of leadership, you need to do things that cause other people to follow them. That hasn't been happening yet. Therefore, I need to work on this. So if there's some self-criticism, think of it as recommendations for improvement, identifying growth areas. So even though it might not be something that shows you as strong as you could be, if you are finding a path for you to improve, that's fine. Yeah, you wouldn't be in this program if there wasn't something you were trying to improve. All graduate students are. So, state what it tells you about your own leadership looking forward. Apply the theory to what you're doing now, and what can or should you do better or different to reach the goals that you want. Alright, now this assignment should be somewhere around 540 words in length. So it's approximately 2 double-sided pages with, it's approximately 2 double-spaced pages with 12-point font, Times New Roman, 1-inch margins all around. Because one of those is usually around 250 words, so adding that 40 words, so just a little bit over that 2 pages, not counting the title page or the references. Alright, what else do we have? Well, the assignment description has some notes on writing and formatting. It tells you, okay, high quality writing is expected, that you should use grammar checking, and so there's a spelling and grammar check in Word, as well as resources like Grammarly, which have free modules you can add to your paper to get feedback on your writing. They are not perfect, but they're another set of eyes, and draw your attention to areas of potential concern. And there is a note encouraging you to treat this as something that is part of your professional portfolio, where you are not only building skills, but also samples that you can provide of your writing. And then the other item lists some of the tools that you have here. I'll just mention, when you sign up for an appointment with the Writing Center, you will upload a draft of your paper to Turnitin, and that will allow you to view and see if it reports any quotes that you have forgotten to mark appropriately as quotes. Now, you'll still have to go and make those changes and to make sure that those quotes are cited and referenced properly. But as hold on, let's do a quick check. It's rather like going on a road trip and making sure to check that your tires have air in there, that your tank is full of gas, basic good practices that help ensure a smooth ride. And then we move to the area that leads us to the webinar we're doing today, APA formatting. Now, all of your classes in the MBA program will be using APA 7th edition, and there are many resources that you can use in addition to the formal manual that is published by the American Psychological Association. And the main reason we're doing this webinar is that most people learn a complex set of rules through gradual acculturation and by seeing references that build their sense of what looks right. The intuitive sense for which they add formal rules and detailed understanding. And so each of these will offer different examples that you can check and references. But our goal through whichever ones you use, and in this video, is that you will build a stronger sense of what looks right and what you are being asked to do. And so as you embark on writing more complex assignments with multiple sections and things like that, that you will be building your knowledge gradually. So we're not going to be covering everything today, but I'm going to particularly highlight APA Style Central. That's that second link here. it is something that did not exist in the previous version of APA Style. It was added for APA 7th edition, and APA Style Central has a wonderful set of free and quick-to-access specific references, reference examples, and explanations of some of the most commonly used rules. It's also authoritative, meaning it's developed by the people who wrote the APA rules for 7th edition, and so if there's any question about whether it's correct to do something that way, it's a quick thing that you can check and share. And if there's any dispute, tell your team member, oh, here's where it says this on APA Style Central, which may be faster than if you only one of you or none of you have a copy of the APA manual. So we strongly recommend that. And then here's the rubric. And you'll see it is basically grading you on doing exactly the things the instruction says. Do you define leadership in no more than 40 words? Okay, that's 20% of the grade. Do you argue for one of the 3 leadership perspectives there, giving a convincing argument that it is most useful for understanding leadership? It's 20% of the grade. Do you provide an example of a well-known leader who is explained by that theory with supporting examples? At least 2 of them. Another 20% of the grade. And then did you apply it to yourself? 20%. So that leaves the last 20%, the last 1 out of 5 points. The difference between an A and a C. Is the paper approximately 500 words, so is it the right length? Is it formatted based on APA guidelines and meeting basic standards for clear writing? Well, that's a substantial amount of points. And let's take a moment to go look at the next assignment here. So I have here the instructions for the other assignment for week 1, assignment 3, about the personal leadership philosophy. And it's also requiring that your paper be around 2 pages in length, formatted in APA. And if we look at the rubric here, we see, oh, yes, that's, again, 20% of the grade. That's the difference between an A and a C. So that's why we're spending so much time on this today. All right. So with that said, let's talk about APA formatting. So here are some initial instructions to help you practice good APA formatting. First, start with our course paper template. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting to get things looking right for you, including setting up things like a title page, references page, style rules that make it quick to format things correctly. We have a suggestion, strong suggestion, that you use the instructions for your assignment as a guide for how to organize your paper, because those have been carefully thought out, and the instructor is going to be looking for those in the order that they're listed in the instructions. Keep your paragraphs focused, follow a set of general formatting rules, cite your sources, and reference them. So let's start out with that APA course paper template. Now, I gave you a link where you can find it on the Writing Center website. Here's a quick one if you just want to type it in. Let's take a look at the Writing Center website here. So if you're anywhere on the Writing Center website, you want to go up to the navigation. So we have Home, About, Services, Resources. And if we look under Resources, we will find that there are a set of selections for us. And here, right at the top, we have Resources APA 7. That's where we want to go. Now, you will see that there's a selection of things here, including templates, resources, some things related to APA writing, and for certain programs, we have special resources that are available. So if it happens that you are writing a course paper template, great, here's where you want to go to download it. This link, by the way, is for a video showing how to use a template style, so you can watch it on your own time. Now, I've used that link to download a copy of our AP course paper template. And this copy happens to come with comments explaining how to use different parts of the template, how to fill in different things with your information, and after you have use this once or twice, you're probably going to not need those anymore. So you're going to delete them right away. So let me just show you how I quickly clean up this, so to speak. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so you can see more of the page view here. So if you go to the Review tab, there's this Delete Comment button, and I can select this chevron, select Delete All Comments in Document. Boom, they're gone. Now, in some assignments, usually as you move further in your graduate education, you're asked to write an abstract, particularly if it's something that you are preparing a potential journal article. But in this case, this assignment doesn't require one, so we're just going to delete this page here. So we want the title of the paper to be at the start of page 2, as well as here on the first page. Alright, now we've got some placeholder text here, and you can see the general division, the first level heading, centered, second that way. This is a short paper. We don't need heading so much in this one, as you will in longer ones. I'm going to go ahead and delete these placeholders here. And before I delete these placeholder references, I'm just going to point out that they're following a standard format where you have the last name or last names of the authors, their initials, year of publication, the title of whatever it is. For a journal article, then you give the journal information, the title, the volume, issue number, and the page range. And sometimes there may be some additional information if it's something you access online, slightly different format for a book. We'll talk about these in a moment. But I'm going to go ahead and delete these placeholders now. And let's go back to look at our slides. Alright, use the instructions as an organizational guide, making sure that you answer each prompt directly and then respond in detail. Make sure you use the language and word choices of the prompts, and use those consistently when referring to the same thing. There are many types of writing where they encourage a variety because they're trying to explain complex concepts. In APA style, we want to be very precise. Just as in business, if you're ordering a particular part, something that's close to that usually doesn't cut it. You need exactly the thing that you're doing, or an authorized substitute. Use the rubric and the instructions to come up with approximate headings and section lengths, and interpret the suggestions in the instructions as requirements. Keep your paragraphs focused. So here, one way to do that is to start your paragraph with a clear topic sentence. Good advice in general, but especially when you're writing a paper like this, where you have to get a fair bit of information out in just 2 pages. So, in this, many of your paragraphs will be starting with a topic sentence that clearly aligns with one of the numbered prompts. You might have a particular prompt that you're taking 2 or 3 paragraphs to respond to, but in general, most of yours should be starting with a topic sentence that says that you are responding to that prompt. As a general rule of thumb for how long sentences should be, a maximum length of 3 lines of text. Again, given that we're using 12-point Times New Roman font, 1-inch margins, as with the template. That's a general rule of thumb. If it's longer, people usually have to take a breath, and that's usually when they start losing focus. So you want to keep it, again, maximum of 3 lines. If you have a long list for some reason, probably not in this assignment, but in some later in this course, if you have a long list, you can include that list, but it's usually going to be helpful if you're using a bulleted or numbered indented list to format this information and make it easier to read. And for each paragraph, we want to aim for a target of 5 to 7 sentences in length. Occasionally you'll have longer, occasionally you'll have shorter, but generally 5 to 7 is a good target for a focused discussion of something. And if you have a much longer one, you want to start a new paragraph, making sure that that new paragraph has its own topic sentence. Some general formatting rules for how things should look in APA style. And I will say these are all things that we give to you as defaults when you're using the APA course paper template. Title page with the references page at the end. Have page numbers. Start each paragraph with a 1/2-inch tab indentation. 12-point font, some standardized one. Well, technically there's no ban on Comic Sans. We do want this to be professional looking, so choose your font accordingly. Double spacing. And for your references, have a half-inch hanging indentation. Now, let me take a moment to correct a common misassumption. In previous versions of APA style, the title page did not have a visible number. And in some special documents, like a graduate thesis or dissertation, it still will not have a visible number. For your course papers, however, you should always have a page number in the upper right-hand corner. So, keep in mind that cross-up is not accepting the title page, it is including the title page. So that's a very common thing, and I hate to see people lose points for that. If you use our course paper template, you will have that page number there. Alright, cite your sources. So a general principle of high-level academic and scientific writing is to show how you know what you know. And the classic way to do that is to include a citation. And there are two common ways that you might do that. The first is with the signal phrase, when you identify who you're referring to in the body of the sentence, like, oh, Sathuraman and Suresh, writing in 2014, identified a strong association between leaders' psychological types and their leadership behaviors. So we see in the body of the sentence, we mention as the grammatical subject, the authors, and we include the publication year in parentheses, and then the rest of the sentence continues. As opposed to, if we're not trying to focus on the finder to say who did it, but just on the finding itself, when you have, okay, the 6 habits of effective leaders provide a useful guide for internal training, parentheses, Smith 2018. So that is putting the focus on the finding, because we don't even get the information, okay, where did that come from, till the end of the sentence. Now, what you use is going to depend on the kind of argument that you're making. If you are trying to say, oh, here are all these authors who have written about this, then yeah, you probably do want to use signal phrases, because that identifies the reader and points out these people's names as important. But it's more, okay, the finding is the thing to focus on. The citation is where to know to go for more details. Then parenthetical citation at the end is fine. Oh, this next one, if it comes from a non-published source, if it comes from something where someone just told you verbally or sent you an email or something, you want to state how you know this. Now, there's a way that you can cite personal communications that we'll cover later in the term, but not in this term, in future terms. But in general, if you're referring to something that comes from your knowledge, as you are asked to do in this assignment, well, just state how you know this, like, oh, in my 10 years with the company, I've often observed, or in my 2 years as regional manager of this, or in my 5 years as assistant vice president, or whatever the case should be. Reference your sources. So anything that you include a parenthetical citation for, or a signal phrase for, that's a published source, you should have a references entry. Here's a reference entry for that one that we cited back here in the signal phrase. If it comes from a non-published source, however, don't include a reference entry. Why? Because other people can't access and retrieve that. Alright, now if you're writing about your personal beliefs and experience, as you happen to be in this assignment, you can and should use personal pronouns like I and my to clarify what you're talking about. Don't say, the associate vice president who looks a lot like me, but I won't mention his me, did this. I have occupied this job for 3 years. Alright, we know exactly who you're talking about. Great. So I believe that, I define this, my personal belief, and as it happens, this assignment does require that you define your personal belief to give your own definition of leadership in 40 words or less. And when you are using I, just keep in mind it can be distracting if you have a whole paragraph filled with I statements. Usually in a case like that, if the first sentence identifies you as the person you're talking about, then you can use passive voice for variety. But you start out by clarifying so we know who you're talking about with, and then you don't need to give us, as they say, the gory details all throughout. Alright, let's talk some more about APA formatting. But first we're going to review those rules, or those guidelines. Start with the template. Use the instructions you are given as a guide for how you should organize it. So if they list things in a particular order, write about them in that order. Keep your paragraphs focused and generally 5 to 7 sentences in length. Follow the normal rules for how your information should look in APA style. Your paragraphs are all having the first line indented, that you have your references with a half-inch hanging indentation, double spacing. Basically, if you use our template, it should look like this. And don't forget, if you are creating it on your own, make sure that you have a page number in the upper right-hand corner for all pages. Don't make the common mistake of leaving it off the title page. All right. So we have a number of related resources where if you want more information on a topic, if you think that having a more in-depth exploration with more examples covering a wider variety of source types and situations, check out our webinar, Citing and Utilizing Diverse Sources. It happens to be a tie-in with something in the higher education program, but it goes through a lot of the whys and hows with examples of many different source types that you, as a business student, will be citing later on in the program. We also have a dedicated Intro to APA 7th Edition webinar. So we're covering a more applied version here. You might think of it as you start a job and you've given your first task to do, so we train you how to do that one task. And you know there are other things coming, you know there are other things you have to learn, but we're not at that yet. Now, if you want to watch that now to cement your knowledge, or once you're done with this first set of week's assignments, to build on that in preparation for the others, absolutely. So these are complementary. This touches on the writing and a lot of the visual stuff. This is specifically about how to cite different source types. All right, so let's talk about some of these things. So the title page formatting, we should have the page number in the upper right-hand corner. On the first page, we should have the title of the paper, your name, the university, the course, the instructor, the date. Some people will put their program in there with the affiliation line. So, School of X, Department of X, program of this. That's fine. The intent is that it identify who you are, and if you choose to be more detailed, that's not a problem. Let's take a look at that template we have. You'll see if we go to page 1, we have, we got our page number in the upper right-hand corner. We've got our title. We've got all this stuff for you to fill in. All right, now on the second page, we start the main body, since in this case the assignment doesn't require an abstract. So the main body of the paper starts on page 2. And as you see, it should have the title at the top. It should be centered and bolded, capitalized in title case. We should have, if we have subdivisions within the paper, we have headings appropriately. You can see that the first one, AP Level 1, is centered and bolded and in title case. The AP Level 2, the first subheading under that, will be flush left. And actually, if you use the styles we have built into the template, which we demonstrate in detail in the APA 7th Edition webinar, this will be mostly done for you. Explanation of those different headings and what they look like. A change from APA 6, in case you used it in an earlier part of your studies. APA 6 did not have all the headings being in title case or bolded, and there are also some changes to how the level 3, 4, and 5 headings look compared to before. But the level 1s and level 2s are exactly as they were before. Alright, so the references page. You're going to want to have a full list of every published source that was cited in the paper. And you're going to alphabetize that by the author's last name. If there's more than one author, by the first author's last name. And if there really are no authors, check first to see if there's an organization that claims authorship. So, for example, my alma mater, Boston University, if there was no other author attributed, the trustees of Boston University claimed authorship. All right, so you put them down for that. But if there's genuinely no author that you can track down, no individual author, a corporate author, then you'd put down the title in the author space and sort it accordingly. All right, don't indent the first line of a citation. but every line after that should have a half-inch hanging indent. Don't do that manually. That's more work than anyone should. First of all, if you're using our template, that should happen automatically. If it doesn't, say you copied and pasted it and it's not appearing there, use either Control-T if you're on a Windows PC or Command-T if you're on a Mac, and that will add that hanging indent there. Don't add extra blank lines between citations. Those should just be double-spaced throughout the references. And don't number or bullet point them. That's something that they do in other style systems, but not in APA style. Looking at this, we see that there are, each line after the first has that half-inch hanging indent. And you can see that there are some italics and other things like that. Let's talk about what gets that kind of formatting. So, week 1 assignments, and here we're talking not just this one, but the third assignment this week as well. The week 1 assignments, we include a variety of different source types. You can see, the course text, Introduction to Leadership, Concepts and Practice, that is a single author book. The Steve Jobs book, also a single author book. The 2 sources after that, Harvard Business Review, that's a journal article. The next one is Christian Science Monitor, which is somewhere between a journal and a newspaper, so we can follow the formatting for a newspaper there. Now, there are sometimes cases where more than one set of guidelines is potentially applicable, and we want to pick the one that is most applicable to this. In this case, the Christian Science Monitor doesn't collect everything and just publish it, once a month or something like that. They will publish content on their website daily. So that makes it function, at least today, more as an online newspaper. So that is the particular set of guidelines that we should follow here. Now, podcast episode, okay, it's got its own way of formatting. YouTube video, own way of formatting. And then there's some more YouTube videos that will follow the same thing. So, whatever your source is, you're going to be following a basic formula for your references. Now, for the citations, it's always author date, sometimes with an additional thing about the page number if you're quoting directly, or a timestamp if you're quoting from a video. But author, date, and then possibly, how to find that specific thing within it. For a reference entry, it's who wrote it, when was it published, what's it called, and how do you find it? So, for example, for this journal article, who wrote it? MJ Valencia. When was it published? 2007. What's it called? The East China Sea Dispute, Context, Claims, Issues, and Possible Solutions. How do you find it? In the journal Asian Perspective, Volume 31, Issue 1, pages 127 through 167. Or this YouTube video. Who wrote it? Well, it was published on the channel titled Jeremy Johns, so we put that down there for the author who wrote it. When was it published? August 21st, 2021. What's it called? Reminiscence Movie Review. Then we have a clarifying note saying that this is a video in square brackets. How do you find it? You go to YouTube. First, that's the platform name, and you go to that specific URL to get to the video. All right. Let's look at the specific instances we have to do. Well, for a book, we need to, a book where we have one author or set of authors who take credit for everything, as opposed to an edited volume where people write individual chapters by themselves. For a basic book format, who wrote it? When was it published? What was it called? Where did we find it? In this case, what's the name of the publisher to order it from? So we see this example here. Calfee and Valencia wrote this. The APA Guide to Preparing Manuscripts for Journal Publication is the title, and it was published by the American Psychological Association in 1991. Journal articles, same idea, just sometimes you'll have a journal that has monthly publication schedules, so we might include that, but usually you just need the year. Most journals that started out as monthly once upon a time are not monthly anymore and publish with less frequency. Online newspaper article, well, we need the author's name, we need the year, month, and day for one that's published daily, like this is. There are some online newspapers that are published weekly, so they'd still have the month and day, and some that are only monthly, in which case you'd include the March there as well. But the New York Times publishes daily, so Can We Get Better at Forgetting is the title of the author. The title of the article. The author is Carrie B. Carrie. This is in the New York Times. The is part of the official name, so we have it there. And then there's the link to the article. Now, if you're citing a printed newspaper article, instead of the URL at the end, we would have the page range, like, say, C6. Podcast episode, same basic idea. We do have an additional clarification that the people listed at the beginning are the hosts of the podcast, so the guests don't get listed there, just the hosts of the podcast. And just like we have for YouTube, there's some additional information. So we have in square brackets saying, okay, it's an audio podcast episode. Then the name of the podcast series is, in this case, is Radiolab. Publisher is WNYC Studios, and then we have a link to that resource. YouTube video, start with the name of the channel, Harvard University. The year, month, and day, because it's listed there. The title of the video, and sentence case, noted in square brackets saying it's a video. Publisher platform, find it on YouTube, and then a direct link. Book chapter, that's not coming up this week, but it is coming up later. So if you want to refer back to that, here is the format for that. You'll see that we start with the author of the chapter in question, publication year for the book. We have the title of the chapter, and then and then the name of the editor, with their initial first, then their last name. Parenthetical notes saying that they're the editor. With multiple editors, EDS, period. Then the title of the book and the page range for the chapter, finishing with the name of the publisher. And by the way, if you're citing a book chapter, your citation should include the author of the chapter itself, not the editor. So it would be Considine 2015, not RIA 2015. All right, so let's go ahead and let's just look at some of these things in practice. So going back to this, who wrote it, when was it published, what's it called, how do you find it? Let's do a practical step here. So if we look at this assignment, and it asks you to refer to the week's readings. So looking at here, we have the course textbook here. We have Steve Jobs, the biography. We have these articles, and we have these videos. So let's start here with this assignment. What does it ask you specifically to do? What sources does it...
I looked up one time in my...
So in this particular assignment, it says, based on your current understanding of leadership, choose what you do. If you use textbook exercise here, you're going to want to be citing the textbook here. So how would we do that? Well, if we look at this, Introduction to Leadership, Concepts and Practice. Now you might have an ebook copy of this. You might have a physical copy of this. Let's go ahead and take a preview of this book. Now I've pulled up an electronic preview of the book here, and we see, okay, it was published by Sage. The author is Peter G. Northouse. It's Introduction to Leadership, Concepts and Practice, 5th edition. It was published in 2021. Okay, let's go head over to our template. So, since we're putting in our first reference entry here, we're just going to go ahead and put it at the top of the list. Any other ones will go in here alphabetically. Now, here is a common mistake that people make. They'll see, oh, the source says Peter G. Northouse. But in APA style, we abbreviate the author's initials for the first and middle names. So it should be P.G. Woodhouse, not Peter G. Title here, Introduction to Leadership. Note that I didn't keep the capitalization here. You see that it's in all caps there on the cover. We are writing it in sentence case. And the subtitle, we capitalized the first letter of the subtitle. Concepts and Practice. So that should be lowercase. Now after the title and subtitle, we need the name of the publisher, which is Sage. Now in a previous version of APA style, you would have had to put in the city and state here. That is no longer required, should not be in there anymore. Don't put it in there. Why? Well, publishing has changed a bit. You can see here that they have 6 different cities listed there. 2 of which are in the United States, 1 of which is in the United Kingdom, 1 is in India, 1 is in Singapore, and others in Australia. So it used to be that they would publish different versions of books all around the world at just different places because transportation was hard. And now they will email things electronically, and so you can have the book be consistent at all the different places it's printed. So location doesn't matter as much as it used to, and that's why it's no longer included in APA style for your references. Alright, so that's how you would reference that, and our parenthetical citation would be Northhouse, 2021. Alright, so what else do we have here on our list of sources that we might be including? Well, we've got the Steve Jobs text. That's going to be the exact same sort of formatting for it. So let's look at the Cotter the Cotter article here. Now this is in Harvard Business Review. And let me show you what people will usually do for this, and then show you how to get what you want. So usually they'll just select it from their list of readings here. Then they'll go and they will paste it in here. And the first thing you'll notice is that it's not quite looking the way that it does here. We've got a different font, the font size is different, it's bulleted, doesn't have the hanging indent, it's got that in the middle. So go ahead and select this drop down here and select Match Destination Formatting. That gets us close. We still have that bullet, so go ahead and select Keep Text Only instead. Now we have relatively little cleanup to do. We'll go ahead and select this links to an external site and delete that. We'll italicize Harvard Business Review. We'll italicize 79, which is the journal volume number. And we need one more thing. We need the link to this because this was accessed online. So here, if you open this up, this will take you through the ACU online library to identify that. We'll come back to a moment. And when we're done, we're going to put a link here at the end. Now, sometimes it will happen that there's more than one way to get at something. So in this case, we're looking at the catalog entry. And if you select this PDF full text link, it would take you to a system where you can access this. But if we used your link here, this link here at the top, that would require that the person using it have an ACU email account, username, and password. And not everyone does that. So here's a secret. Harvard Business Review, you're going to be seeing this a lot. Harvard Business Review actually has gone back and published most of its older content that would otherwise only be indirectly accessed. They've gone ahead and placed that online. So we can go ahead and search for the title in Harvard Business Review and find a direct link to the source. Now, this is still Cotter GP 2001. Still coming from 2001. It's just, it has been republished to make it more accessible here. So we can include that link, and now it works for everyone who's going to be accessing that. Alright, so what else do we have here? Well, let's talk about the Christian Science Monitor thing. We'll go through the same thing. So Ham, this is going to be going before Cotter in our list of references here. So, alright, add a space. And I'm just going to start out pasting. And again, it doesn't quite look right. It's got all that extra thing. From experience, I know that I want to go right to keep text only. And then I'll delete that little download text. I'll go ahead and I see, oh, this is repeated, so I'll clean that out. Christian Science Monitor, that's the title of the journal, so italicize that. Let's see, we have one thing that's missing. That's the link. Now, if we go back here and we just open this here, let's see what comes up here. So this brings us to a link to download it from ACU, from the course website. But I mentioned this is an online newspaper. We can find that online. And it's not that citing this would be incorrect. If there was no other way to do it and you included a link to it, well, that's better than nothing. But the more correct, the more functional thing, the more helpful thing is to have a link to the article that anyone can use, or anyone can use with the appropriate subscription. Now, I went ahead and I did a Google search for the title of the article and Christian Science Monitor, and look what comes up at the top. That specific article available on the Christian Science Monitor website. Now, the fact that we get here, they ask you about subscription, but we have a link that leads right to it, and that's what we want. Because whether someone is subscribed to the journal or not, or whether it's using a free article or something else, the important thing is to point them to the right place to get to that article. And here we have it. All right, we are moving through this, and you can see it's still following that formula. Who wrote it? When was it published? What's it called? How do you find it? Who wrote it? T. Ham. When was it published? Here. What's it called? Here. How do you find it? In the Christian Science Monitor, here's a direct link to the website. Okay, so when we are going through our list here, we are now moving on to podcasts. So next up here, we have this link to the podcast. Okay, let's go ahead and pop that open. All right, so we have our authors here. That answers who wrote it. We have the title of the article, or the podcast, podcast episode. The title of the podcast as a whole is the McKinsey Podcast. And we have a link to get to hearing this and to read the transcript. Okay, so let's go through our process here, starting with our names of the authors. All right, so this is going to be starting with D, so that's going to be up here. Create another space, and start just by pasting it. We're going to go with unformatted text, and first thing we want to do is to rearrange this to follow the last name initial. When there's more than one author, put a comma, and before the last author in that list, also put an ampersand. So Shadinger Bill, so B. Now this is June 3rd, 2021. That's over here. Third. Title here of the episode, Search for Purpose at Work. And paste it and select Keep Text Only. There we go. And let's go back to our slides and see what else we need here. All right, so we need to remember to indicate that these people are the hosts of the episode. All right, so that's easy. We just go ahead and add that here. That's with the period going after the parentheses. The search for purpose at work. And we need to add that note in square brackets that is an audio podcast episode. And then in the name of the podcast itself, which here it says that it's called the McKinsey Podcast. And then we need a link to it. So we grab that from up here. Ta-da! Now, if you're curious, this bit at the end is just saying that it came from a web search. So we could actually trim this off. Sometimes you'll have a really long bit of code there. But this is all we need for that to work. We can even double check that that works by copying and pasting that back into the web browser. And it takes us right where we need to go. All right, so we are almost through here looking at this and a set of sources. Last up, the last type of thing we have here are these YouTube videos. And it's going to be the same process for each. We'll start with the leadership and your calling video here. So, first question is, what is the channel that has published this? And in this case, it is the Lytle Center for Faith and Leadership. Whatever goes in there, whatever the capitalization, whatever numbers or symbols they use, that's what we use there. So we'll copy and paste that here, and that's going to be going here. and paste. I'm just going to do unformatted text. And then, per this, okay, we have the name of the channel, need the year, month, and day. Okay, so that's going to be over here, March 5th, 2020. The title of the video is going to be Leadership and Your Calling. And you'll note that the title of the video here should be rendered in sentence case, so capitalized the same way you would capitalize a sentence. So even though it's in title case here, we want to have this in sentence case. Now if I just paste it, we get that formatting, so we'd use keep text only. And so next thing we're going to do, we're going to change this to lowercase. Ashley's name stays the same because that is a proper noun. And in this case, if we look at our checklist here, after the title of the video, the italicized title of the video, so let's go ahead and add that. We need to have in video, video marked in square brackets, followed by a period, name of the platform, in this case it is YouTube, and then we want a link to that video. Now you could get the long link at the top here, but you can also use this share button here and get this more concise one. And this, the more concise one, in general, APA style likes conciseness. It just looks a little bit neater. And if anyone is trying to type this in later, it's going to be a whole lot faster than doing the other version. Either is correct. This is better because it is more concise. All right, so there you have it. We've looked at how to format a reference for a book. We've looked at how to format a podcast entry, online newspaper, an online journal, and a YouTube video. And so those are the basic types of sources that we cover in this week's assignments. Now, if you want to delve further into this, of course, we'd refer you again to the different resources we have for APA style, including this entered APA 7th edition. We have many other webinars on our site that look into specific aspects of APA style. And if in doubt, if you're not sure what is the right one for the kind of thing you're trying to do, just go ahead and send us an email. We are always happy to field questions. Just write us at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu. If it's a question coming from a specific assignment, just give us a link to the assignment, and we will get back to you. So, hope that's helpful. And again, welcome to ACU. Welcome for the program. We're happy to have you here. Have a good one.